You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm Frank Morano, sitting in for John Tobacco, who we'll check in with again in a couple of minutes. But yesterday was a pretty important day if you are on Medicare or if you're eligible for Medicare. It's the beginning of open enrollment on Medicare. What does that mean in general? What does that mean for you specifically? We are lucky enough to have a real expert. She's a partner at Genser Kona, Melissa Negrin-Wiener. Melissa, thanks so much for coming and spending a few minutes with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So what does that mean, open enrollment, with respect to Medicare and insurance in general? What was different beginning yesterday than the previous day?
Open enrollment is from October 15th to December 7th, and it is the period of time where people who are eligible to enroll in Medicare can enroll, and people who are already on Medicare can change their plans, drop the old plan, change into the new plan.
So to be clear, if people are already on Medicare, they have the option of going into a new plan here?
That's right.
Okay, so if you're a first-time Medicare enrollee specifically, I know this can become a bit confusing because it seems there's more and more Medicare options. Some you have to pay a little bit more for, some there's a donut hole, some there's a munchkin, I don't know. How do you pick the Medicare plan that's right for you?
So it is really confusing. There's regular traditional Medicare, and you can get a supplemental plan to go along with that. That type of plan, there is really no specific network. You can go to anybody who takes Medicare will take that supplemental plan. There's also the Medicare Advantage plans, which are through the traditional insurance companies. So you're not really getting that Medicare Part A, you're getting a regular insurance policy that's your Medicare, either HMO or PPO, and that's going to have the network. So you can only go to specific doctors, hospitals, things like that.
So how do I know what plan, if I'm not quite Medicare eligible yet, maybe a year or two, but how do I know what plan is right for me, or if I'm helping a parent or a grandparent or an uncle pick out a Medicare plan based on your finances? How do you know, or your healthcare needs, how do you know which Medicare plan to pick?
So you need to look at your healthcare needs, your prescription drugs, what type of issues you might have, how often do you go to the doctor, how often do you have to go to, say, radiology, things like that, and that's going to determine whether or not you want a plan that maybe has a higher premium but lower copays, or vice versa. There are some plans that have no premium at all but very high copays, and people who don't go to the doctor too often might prefer something like that. So you really have to look at a lot of different aspects of your medical needs, and also, again, how much income you have and what you can afford.
All right, so let's say I am in relatively good health, and let's say I'm on the lower end of the Medicare eligibility spectrum, mid-60s or so, then I would pick a plan that was no premiums but a high copay.
That's what most people would think, probably. Interesting, I was having this conversation with someone this morning who said, well, what if? What if the big catastrophe happens?
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Right.
Yeah. So
you do have an option if you are enrolled in another plan for Epic. You have an option to be able to change your plan once per year. So you do have that kind of ability to jump out of your plan and jump into another one if there's a catastrophic problem, but you have to be enrolled in Epic to be able to do that.
So let's say I've been on Medicare for quite some time, 10, 15 years or so. What would cause me in this open enrollment period, which began yesterday, to change the type of Medicare coverage I'm receiving? Why would I change?
So really what happens is the plans change. So you have to, when you receive your annual notice of change, you have to look at it to see what's changed about your plan. There are certain maybe doctors or hospitals that have opted out of the plan, or there's drugs that are no longer covered, or the premiums have changed. So you have to review the plan when those letters come out in September to see if your world still fits into that plan, or if you need to look for something else.
Now, you are an expert in the elder law field, and 4 years ago it would have been sort of a political pipe dream to think that we'd be sitting here realistically talking about a program that would cover Medicare for all. But now, most of the Democratic presidential candidates, many of whom are beating President Trump in head-to-head matchups, have plans for exactly that, Medicare for all or single-payer health care. One of the things that we've heard as one of the concerns about Medicare for all is that this could actually lead to a worse quality of medical coverage for seniors that are currently receiving Medicare. Based on what you've seen, what you know, do you think that's a realistic fear?
I think that nobody really knows how it's going to play out, and I think we're going to have to worry about a lot of doctors opting out of certain plans, and then elderly people who have been seeing the same physician for the same problem for years may have to find a new doctor, and or may have to go much further to get the care that they need. So I think that's the real concern with the elderly.
What's the biggest mistake that an elderly person makes when either selecting their Medicare plan or using Medicare services in general?
Well, I think the biggest mistake that people make, and it's kind of the simplest thing to avoid, is they put these change notices in their drawer, or they just don't even look at them.
That's me. That's what I do. I haven't looked at a piece of mail that I've gotten since Gerald Ford was president.
So that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make. Another huge mistake that people make is they don't realize that Medicare doesn't cover long-term care. So Medicare is a short-term payer, a hospital stay, a doctor's visit, even if you go to rehab, a very short time in rehab, then you have to look for a long-term payer. So Medicaid or private pay or long-term care insurance, but people think they have Medicare, so they're okay. That's kind of the terminology they use with us. We're okay. And they're not. They have to make sure that they're planning and they have that long-term piece also in place.
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how the next couple of months of open enrollment plays out. Also going to be interesting to see how these different Medicare for all plans resonate. Any other tips that our older viewers should keep in mind, or did we kind of check the key boxes? If people want to do a little more research, by the way, is there any place online that you might direct them to do a little bit more homework on this?
Sure. Well, the Medicare website is medicare.gov. People can always reach out to us at our website, genzerlaw.com, and we would be able to direct you or help you out. And just basically to know what Medicare doesn't cover, and to also review your prescription drug plans because they change all the time.
All right. Well, Melissa, this has been a lot of fun. I hope you'll come back and visit us soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, we are going west up next, as I threatened to earlier. We are going to check in with the crypto cowboy. The crypto cowboy is going to tell you what his take is on Libra, that's the new Facebook cryptocurrency, and his take on the economy in general. And there just might be a healthcare hook there as well. Find out when we talk to Drew Taylor, the crypto cowboy from the Wild West Cryptocurrency Show next. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm Frank Morano. We'll be right back.